Crammed into the cockpit of the orange sidewinder, Tog, Cecil, and Smurfy sat in an awkward heap. The sidewinder was not designed for 2 people and a space puppy, and it showed. Cecil was wedged against the side panel, knees up to his chest, grumbling about leg cramps. Tog was half on the pilot's chair, half off, as Smurfy had plonked himself squarely in the middle like he was the captain now.
Right,
Tog muttered, rubbing his hands together.
let's get this beauty started.
He flipped the main power switch. For a solid 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then, bang! A huge puff of dust exploded from the vents, sending Cecil into a coughing fit. The ship let out a deep, mechanical groan, as if it had just been woken from a centuries-long nap and was not happy about it.
Bloody hell, Tog!
Cecil wheezed, waving dust out of his face.
I think the ship's allergic to you.
Nonsense.
Tog said, hitting the console repeatedly.
It just needs a little encouragement.
He smashed the start button again. This time the ship shuddered violently. More dust spewed from the vents, and then a voice crackled to life.
Oh, wonderful. You again. Oh, no, Tog. Of all people, you had to bring him with you, too.
Cecil and Tog froze. The ship's AI had woken up. Doris.
Fantastic.
Doris continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm.
It's been, what, 10 years? 12? And now you, of all people, have decided to drag me out of my peaceful slumber.
Tog cleared his throat.
Ah, hello, Doris. How are you today? Did you miss me?
Oh, don't you? Hello, me, you walking disaster. What have you done to me? I feel like I've been punched in the power core.
Oh, it's nothing.
Tog said cheerfully, flicking switches as more warning lights popped up.
Just a little dust in the...
Then, the console fizzed, spattered and popped. Half the cockpit screens shut off. Doris sighed.
Right. So we're all going to die. Fantastic.
Cecil snickered.
I had forgotten how much I love Doris.
Smurfy wagged his tail.
Hello, Doris. My name is Smurfy.
There was a pause.
Did the dog just talk?
Tog sighed. Not sure how he is ever going to explain this one to Doris.
Yes, he talks. Can we focus on getting this ship in the air?
Oh, sure. Let's just ignore the talking interdimensional dog, shall we? I suppose that's just another Tuesday with you.
The ship groaned again as Tog wrestled the controls. Slowly, the sidewinder came to life. The main thrusters whined, the fuel pumps rattled, and after a few concerning pops, the engines roared to life.
Yes!
Tog cheered.
We have power!
Barely.
Doris added.
And you, Tog, you have the same energy levels as a hungover snail.
Tog started to respond to Doris's latest insult, but before he could summon anything close to a sarcastic response, the ship lurched forward. The orange sidewinder, swaying to and fro, moved forward with a little encouragement on the flight stick from Tog. It seems he had forgotten that Doris is quite capable of flying the ship on her own, but there was no way she was going to remind him. She takes great pleasure in watching him struggle.
All right, here we go.
Tog said, gripping the controls.
Engaging thrusters.
He eased the throttle forward a little more. There was an alarm and the ship didn't respond as it should. Cecil and Smurfy stared at him. Tog gave an awkward cough.
Ah, right. Landing gear's still down.
Oh, sweet mother of gravity, did you get your pilot's license from a cereal box?
Doris asked with amusement.
You are a complete and utter disaster. I wish this ship was big enough for me to hide at the other side, where I could not see or hear you. Unfortunately, I'm stuck here, tolerating your circus clown impressions.
After several more button presses, angry beeping, and Doris threatening to self-destruct out of shame, the sidewinder finally engaged its thrusters, and Tog aimed the ship upwards. With a final blast of the thrusters, the ship broke free of Earth's atmosphere, soaring upwards as blue skies faded to black, stars twinkling beyond.
We're in space!
Cecil cheered, pumping his fists. It's been a while, he old chap.
Technically, we're barely in orbit,
Doris said.
Try not to get excited. It's embarrassing.
Doris, please!
Tog exclaimed.
Plot a course for Abraham Lincoln Station.
The massive starport spun lazily above the earth, its outer hull twinkling with thousands of lights. The huge mail slot entrance loomed ahead, a constant stream of ships flying in out going about their business. Tog flew the orange sidewinder towards the station, coming around so the slot was dead ahead. Doris's voice was deadpan.
Do try not to hit anything. I know, docking is a difficult concept for you, Tog, but I'd rather not be vaporized today.
I know how to dock.
Tog huffed, adjusting his trajectory. Cecil leaned over.
I say, old chap, last time you tried to land, you hit a radar tower, a lamppost, and a cargo rack all within 10 seconds.
It was not my fault. They were poorly placed and were blocking the flight path to the landing pad.
Doris let out a long, suffering sigh.
Oh, this is going to be a complete disaster. I can barely imagine what we are about to experience. Nothing good, I can bet.
They closed in on the station, Tog wrestling the controls as the ship wobbled slightly.
Doris, request docking.
Tog requested.
Docking request sent.
Doris responded. Docking request approved, the station control tower announced. Proceed to landing pad 27.
All right, nice and easy.
Tog muttered, adjusting their approach. The sidewinder slipped through the rotating entrance slot, entering the massive internal docking bay.
Nice and slow. Nice and...
Bang! They hit the side of the slot.
Oh, for...
Doris groaned.
You absolute...
We're fine, we're fine!
Tog shouted, overcorrecting as the ship wobbled dangerously. Doris took over at the last second, straightening them out and guiding them to their designated pad. The ship settled onto the landing pad, landing gear hissing as it locked into place. Doris sighed in relief.
Somehow, against all odds, we are not dead. I shall notify the authorities of this miracle.
Cecil patted Tog's shoulder.
Honestly, old boy, that was one of your better landings.
It was terrible,
Doris said.
He is terrible. Everything is terrible.
Tog slumped in his seat.
I hate all of you.
Hooray, we made it!
Smurfy barked, wagging his tail.
Wonderful.
Doris deadpanned.
Now, if we could just repair this rust bucket, maybe, just maybe, we won't die in a fiery explosion next time we take off.
Tog sighed.
Right, let's get the ship repaired and fixed up. Make sure she is hyperspace worthy. We have a bit of a trek ahead of us.
And with that, they powered down the ship, ready to step onto the station for some much-needed repairs, and maybe a drink. As Tog, Cecil and Smurfy stepped off the orange sidewinder, they were met with the full, overwhelming scale of Abraham Lincoln Starport. The starport was an absolute monster, a massive cylindrical metropolis in space, bustling with life and energy. The hollowed-out interior stretched for hundreds of meters, lined with an intricate web of skyscrapers, docking bays, and neon-lit advertisement boards flickering in a dozen different languages. The cavernous spaceport was so high, the details of the opposite side of the cylindrical station was barely distinguishable. The holographic billboards displayed everything from ship insurance ads to recruitment posters for the local factions, and some strange mention of a shit shop and best value for many frame-shift drives. Ships of every size, color, and shape came and went, from luxury Saud-Kruger liners ferrying wealthy passengers here and there, to grimy cargo haulers. Tog shivered at the sight of the closest hauler. Not sure why. Some distant memory. Technicians in yellow uniforms darted around the landing pads, shouting orders while robotic drones zipped about, carrying crates, repairing hulls, or scanning for contraband. They entered the lift and descended to the main concourse of the station. They passed the first row of station terminals and then entered the market district. It buzzed with traders and mercenaries negotiating contracts, bounty hunters checking the latest kill lists, and station authorities issuing orders to patrol squads. There were faction booths everywhere, official representatives of the Federation, the Alliance, and the occasional Imperial diplomats standing stiffly, looking down their noses at everyone. Cecil took a deep breath.
Ah, smell that, Tog. That's the smell of adventure.
That's the smell of unwashed pilots and engine grease.
Tog grumbled. Smurfy's nose wrinkled.
And something else. Someone's been eating way too many spicy burritos in here.
Tog wondered how Smurfy would even know what a spicy burrito was, but then put it out of his mind. The trio stopped off at the station's services console and Tog inserted his ID key, lodging the orange sidewinder as in need of repairs and refueling. Needing a drink before their long journey, and knowing they had at least an hour before the ship would be ready, they headed towards the Golden Fer de Lance, a popular bar and lounge for pilots, traders, and mercenaries. Inside it was noisy and packed. The smell of alcohol, sweat, and desperation filled the air. The bar was lined with patrons of all types, grizzled bounty hunters comparing scars, traders celebrating a lucrative haul, pilots nursing a drink after barely escaping a pirate attack, and the odd pirate looking rather sheepish, but keeping an eye out for potential targets. The walls were covered in faded posters, old mission contracts, and the occasional wanted holo display featuring some particularly infamous criminals. A massive screen behind the bar displayed galactic news headlines. Pirate attacks increasing near the Pleiades. Pilots advised to exercise caution. Faction war in Lave system. Trade routes compromised. Explorer discovers ancient alien ruins. Mystery deepens. Cecil licked his lips.
Ah, now this is a bar. Bartender. 2 of your finest, whatever's strong and will not kill us.
The bartender, a burly man with an eye patch and a mechanical arm, grunted and poured them 2 glasses of something disturbingly green. He also offered Smurfy a bowl of water that was eagerly accepted. As they picked up their drinks, a tall, imposing figure walked past them. He walked like a man carved from the hard edges of the galaxy itself. He looked like a living legend of countless missions. His middle-aged face weathered, with lines etched around his piercing eyes from years spent staring down the void of space. His hair, salt and pepper, cropped short, and his face a commanding look with a prominent square jawline. His blue-grey eyes locked onto anyone talking to him, with a mixture of calculated calm and barely concealed fury, the kind of stare that makes lesser men look away. Chuck Norris would think twice, but Chuck would still win. He wore a high-tech, reinforced spacesuit. The suit was a hybrid of military functionality and futuristic design, dark, metallic, and scarred from countless missions. Tiny, flashing lights pulsed along the seams, hinting at the advanced tech hidden beneath the armor plating. He didn't look at them, didn't acknowledge them, just kept walking, disappearing into the crowd. But Smurfy saw it, the name badge on his chest, Commander Twas Ack. Smurfy's ears perked up.
Twas Ack.
He squinted at the departing figure. But before he could say anything, a voice blasted over the bar's intercom.
Attention, you complete and utter buffoons.
Tog sighed.
Oh dear. Doris.
Your rust bucket of a ship is somehow fixed, despite your best efforts to neglect it into total destruction. I have plotted our course to the next system. I suggest you get back here before I launch myself into oblivion out of sheer despair.
Everyone in the bar chuckled and looked around to see who was the intended target of this AI's insults. Cecil downed his drink in one gulp and wiped his mouth.
Well, time to go, lads. Duty calls.
Smurfy, however, kept glancing toward the crowd where the commander had disappeared. But he was nowhere to be seen and no time to investigate. It was then that Smurfy first started having doubts about Tog, and him actually being the hero. There would be many more occasions for him to have these doubts. Who would have thought? However, right now they had a scientist to meet, and a galaxy to save. So off they went, back to the ship to embark on their next trip to meet Ram-Tar. Things are about to get really interesting. Back aboard the orange sidewinder, the cramped cabin rattled as the dilapidated ship's systems powered up. Tog squeezed into the pilot's seat, grumbling as Cecil wedged himself into the corner with the grace of a collapsing wardrobe. Smurfy hopped onto a worn-out cushion between them, tail wagging. Doris's synthetic voice crackled through the speakers.
Welcome back, Commander. Initializing pre-flight systems. I see you've brought the useless drunk and the interdimensional hairball. Delightful.
Oi!
Snapped Cecil, fumbling with his flask.
I'm a vital member of this operation. Thank you very much.
Vital like a third nipple, I would say.
Tog snorted, flicking a row of battered switches. The engines spluttered into life like an asthmatic rhino clearing its throat. The whole ship shuddered violently.
Don't worry, lads.
Tog said, trying to sound confident.
She's just stretching her legs.
More like having a cardiac arrest.
Doris muttered. When everyone was ready, it was time to leave. Tog readied to leave and gave the command for Doris.
Auto-launch, please, Doris.
Nothing happened.
Auto-launch!
He repeated. Still nothing.
Auto-launch!
He tried again. Eventually, with some irritation,
Doris, auto-launch!
He shouted.
Oh, you were talking to me?
Doris snapped.
Auto-launch initiated.
With a worrying clunk, the ship lifted off the docking pad and crept towards the station exit. Once clear, the engines flared and they hurtled away from the station. Well, if you could describe it as hurtled, actually. More like limped.
Right, Doris.
Tog said.
Open galaxy map.
Brain the size of a planet, and you decide to use me as a sat-nav. Unbelievable. Galaxy map is now available for your viewing pleasure.
Doris quipped.
Plot a course to the mean system.
Already done, oh wise and mighty Tog. Engaging frameshift drive in. 3, 2, 1, engage.
Suddenly, the cabin filled with a deafening roar. The ship bucked violently, the stars outside stretching into long, thin lines. The hull groaned as they were flung into hyperspace, a swirling tunnel of molten light and screaming shadows. It felt like being flushed down the universe's most terrifying cosmic toilet. And somehow there seems to be some clocks or watches manifesting in the turmoil and... Wait. Witches. Cecil clutched his flask to his chest.
Oh, bloody hell! Tog, what's happening? Are we dead? I feel like my kidneys are trying to escape through my bum.
Stop whining!
Grunted Tog whilst being thrown about a little.
It's just a hyperspacey thingy jumpy.
A jump that would liquefy lesser men,
added Doris with far too much glee.
Fortunately, you Cecil are already 90% liquid by volume.
After what felt like an eternity, the tunnels spat them out into normal space. Everyone exhaled, except Smurfy, who let out a little bottom burp. They repeated the process several more times, each jump more harrowing than the last. By the fourth jump, Cecil was convinced he'd seen the face of God, though it might have just been the reflection of his own face in the window. Halfway through the journey, Cecil rummaged through a compartment at the back of the flight deck and produced a rather old, dusty mug.
For the mug,
Cecil whispered to himself, and chuckled at something only he likely understood. He investigated the inside of the mug before he filled it with some gin he kept handy in his inside pocket. He then exclaimed,
Well, would you look at that? I think they've started a civilization in there.
In the bottom of the mug, a tiny colony of strange, wiggling creatures stared back at him.
That's disgusting,
Doris interjected.
even for you.
They're worshipping me,
whispered Cecil, wide-eyed.
I'm their god now.
I doubt it, Cecil. They probably think you are going to eat them,
said Tog.
Oh no, they definitely think I am their new deity,
argued Cecil, and he then proceeded to store the mug away in his coat pocket. Finally, the ship dropped into the mean system. The distant orange star cast long shadows across the cockpit.
Doris, plot a course to Phoenix Base, please,
requested Tog.
Course plotted and cruise assist engaged. Oh, wait, That system is not working. Engaging manual approach protocols.
Doris declared, with a little too much glee. Tog guided the sidewinder into the atmosphere of the dusty planet on which the ground-based starport was located, the ship shuddering with every maneuver. The surface loomed closer, vast deserts stretching out beneath them, dotted with jagged canyons and rusted outposts. Nestled between some rather large outcrops of rock stood a breathtaking fusion of ancient Egyptian grandeur and ultra-futuristic spaceport technology. Towering obelisks of shimmering obsidian stretch into the dusty red sky, etched with glowing hieroglyphs that shift and rewrite themselves in real time, chronicling the arrivals and departures of interstellar travelers. Massive pyramidal docking stations float above the golden dunes, held aloft by anti-gravity fields, their smooth basalt surfaces adorned with golden inlays and pulsating with energy conduits. At the heart of the port, the Eye of Ra, a colossal orbital sphere glowing like a solar disk. It bathes the world in a perpetual twilight glow, acting as both a navigation beacon and an energy hub that powers the entire station network. The concourses are alive with the hum of merchants draped in flowing robes, biomechanical scarabs skittering across data panels, and towering sphinx-like sentinels, half machine, half statue, watching over travelers with glowing emerald eyes. Quantum barges, shaped like stylized riverboats of the ancient Nile, drift effortlessly through the sky, ferrying cargo and passengers between the surface and their galactic destinations. At the Temple of Departures, a high priest of the Celestial Order anoints departing travelers with a drop of sacred nanite-infused oil, blessing their ships for safe passage through the stars. The Hierophants of Osiris Terminal oversee customs, their golden masks concealing cybernetic enhancements that can scan an entire history of a traveler with a single gaze. Beyond the main port arrivals concourse, the Valley of Star Kings houses the tomb ships of ancient spacefarers, vast sarcophagi vessels entombed beneath the sands, their quantum engines dormant, waiting for the day their occupants rise again. At Phoenix Base, the past and future are one, where pharaohs ruled among the stars. Trailblazers ventured towards them. Tog guided the ship closer to the starport, and then requested of Doris.
Autodock, please.
Nothing.
Autodock.
Tog asked again. Still nothing.
Flippin' heck! Doris, dock the damn ship!
Tog said in frustration.
As you wish. Docking request sent. Docking request granted. Proceeding to landing pad 4. Engaging approach thrusters.
As the orange sidewinder approached the landing pad, the automated landing gear extended with an unhealthy, grinding noise.
Coming in to land. Landing gear deployed. Touchdown.
They touched down with a bone-rattling thud, sending a small dust storm billowing around the ship.
Right,
said Tog, unclipping his harness.
we're here.
Welcome to Phoenix Base.
Doris announced flatly.
Try not to die.
Cecil leaned forward, squinting through the viewport.
Well, there is a sight. Would you look at that? Glorious.
Tog chuckled, unbuckling himself.
Come on, let's go find this Ram-Tar bloke. And for the love of the stars, someone sober Cecil up before he starts trying to convert the locals to his new religion and turn them into little wriggly things.
Long live the coffee creatures,
whispered Cecil, cradling his mug in his pocket. Smurfy wagged his tail, his glowing collar flickering as if the little dog knew that something ancient and very, very powerful was waiting within the starport. This Ram-Tar might be more than they expect, or could even imagine. This is going to be revealing. The orange sidewinder let out a final groan of protest as the landing gear settled into the dusty, rust-red surface of Phoenix Base. The ship's hatch cracked open with a long, agonizing hiss, like an old man stretching after a 2-hour nap. A wave of dry, smoky heat rolled in, carrying the scent of burning campfires, sizzling meats, and something distinctly like melted rubber. Tog stepped down first, immediately regretting it as his boots crunched into the hot dust. He pulled his collar up against the heat, squinting through the glare of the twin suns above. Cecil, on the other hand, inhaled deeply and spread his arms wide.
Ah, smell that, Tog. That's the smell of proper excitement.
Tog wrinkled his nose.
That's the smell of someone's dinner and about a gallon of space fuel.
And a touch of body odor.
Added Doris over the intercom.
Aromatic. Like a hobo's armpit.
Cecil took another sniff.
You know, she's got a point. Smells like someone's been keeping a dead rodent in their pocket.
That's probably just you, Cecil.
Ignoring them both, Smurfy hopped down lightly, his little paws barely making a mark in the dust. His glowing collar flickered faintly as his nose twitched. His ears were slightly flattened, but he stayed close to Tog's side. Phoenix Base stretched out before them, a sprawling, ancient-feeling settlement fused with high-tech spacefaring necessity. The tall, sandstone-colored buildings had the look of ancient Egyptian temples. Hieroglyphics carved into their metallic frames, glowing faintly with unknown energy. Massive gold-plated obelisks lined the streets, their surfaces etched with strange runes and faded inscriptions, like something straight out of a pharaoh's dream, but covered in wiring. Some sported spinning antennae, whilst others had flickering neon signs advertising questionable services. The bustling streets were alive with movement. Traders and merchants stood by their makeshift stalls, hawking everything from high-tech weapon mods to mysterious-looking trinkets. Bedouin-style canopies flapped in the breeze, shading vendors selling roasted meats and thick, fragrant stews. A group of engineers argued over a sparking drone, smacking it with a wrench in a way that seemed more personal than professional. Bounty hunters leaned against sleek SRVs, exchanging notes and side-eyes. Somewhere a musician strummed a stringed instrument, its sound a mix of ancient Middle Eastern melodies and synthetic hums. Cecil was beside himself.
Look at this place, Tog. It's bloody brilliant. It's like if ancient Egypt had a love child with a dodgy back-alley nightclub.
Fitting, since you look like the patron of one.
Doris quipped. Tog sighed.
All right, let's find Ramtar's lab.
Spotting a nearby technician covered in grease stains, he tapped the man on the shoulder. The bloke turned, blinking as if Tog had just interrupted a profound daydream about baked beans.
We're looking for Ramtar's lab,
Tog said. The man scratched his head. Oh, the tomb? He jabbed a thumb toward the far end of the settlement. Over there. Big golden doorway. Can't miss it. Cecil gasped, clutching Tog's arm like an overexcited child.
A bloody golden doorway, Tog. This is proper adventuring.
Tog chuckled.
You could say that again, Cecil. Rather exciting, isn't it?
As they wound through the streets, Cecil was like a drunk tourist on his first trip abroad. He stopped at every stall, almost bought a genuine ancient alien relic, probably not fake, and had to be physically dragged away from a gambling den run by 3 very unfriendly-looking men. Meanwhile, Doris remained as unhelpful as ever.
Cecil, if you get pickpocketed, I'll be forced to notify the authorities that your wallet contains precisely 0 credits and an IOU for a Hutton mug.
Cecil scoffed.
I'll have you know I'm loaded.
With wine, yes.
Eventually, after narrowly avoiding being run over by a low-flying cargo drone, they arrived at their destination, the Golden Door. It was massive, looming over them like the entrance to an ancient tomb. Because, in a way, it was. Hieroglyphic carvings covered its polished golden surface, pulsating faintly with a soft, eerie glow. Strange symbols lined the frame, twisting and shifting as if the metal itself was alive. The structure seemed impossibly old, yet impossibly advanced. Like something that shouldn't exist in a time period that had spaceships and hyperdrives. Cecil stepped forward, hands shaking with excitement.
Lads, I think we're about to encounter something properly big, huge, magnificent.
Tog, folding his arms, eyed the door.
Yeah. Or we're about to be ripped off. One of the two. It's almost like a tourist attraction.
Smurfy, however, wasn't wagging his tail anymore. He stared at the glowing symbols, ears flattened, his little collar flickering in sync with the energy pulsing through the structure.
You all right, lad?
Tog asked. Smurfy hesitated before forcing a wag of his tail.
Yeah, just got a weird feeling.
Before anyone could respond. The symbols flashed. The ground rumbled. The golden door began to open. A deep, ancient grinding sound echoed through the settlement as the slabs of metal slid apart. Golden dust poured from the seams, swirling in the air. Tog swallowed.
Well, bugger.
Cecil clapped his hands together.
Right. Time to meet the ancient alien boffins.
But Smurfy wasn't wagging anymore. And somewhere deep inside, something told him this was the beginning of something terrifying.